Zoom lenses or primes? Which should you choose? In this edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus, I will explain the pros and cons of each. Now, when I first got started in photography back in the early 70s, there were not very many zoom lenses. In fact, they weren't that great. Primes were the way to go. When you bought a 35mm camera, it came with a 50mm lens. Today, things are a lot different. Zoom lenses are excellent, so you have a choice to make. Which would you prefer to use? Really depends on what you're shooting, whether it's in low light, outdoors, if you're shooting an event, if you're doing portraits, street photography. So we're going to go look at each type of lens, a zoom and the prime, and then you can make your decision based on the facts. First of all, today's zooms are excellent. They're very sharp throughout the range, and they're also much faster than the zooms of the 1970s. One of the best zooms back then was Nikon's 80-200, but it was a 4.5 maximum aperture. This here is Nikon's 24-70 2.8, so it's comparatively much faster than the zooms of the 70s, and it's also much sharper. Back then, there weren't very many zooms going from wide angle to short telephoto. Today, we have plenty. We have zooms starting at 14mm to 24 or 30mm. We have even wider zooms starting at 12mm. So you really do have a great choice. Now, one of the advantages of a prime is that they're faster. This is a 50mm 1.4. This zoom is a 2.8 in its maximum aperture. So this 50mm lens is 2 stops faster. So if you're shooting available light, if you like to shoot nighttime, street photography at night, in nightclubs, or even at home without flash, a faster lens would be a good choice. With this zoom, however, you're going from 24 to 70mm. So this replaces a 24, a 28, a 35, a 50. Doesn't quite replace an 85mm lens. But so you really have 4 or 5 focal lengths in one lens. With the prime, with this 50 for example, if you need to go wider, well, you're going to have to change lenses. If you need to go longer, same thing, unless you use 2 bodies. Now, back when I shot weddings with a Hasselblad, I had 3 lenses. I had a 60mm wide angle, I had an 80mm normal lens, and I had a 150 for portraits. Most of the time I shot with that 80. There were some zooms available for Hasselblad back then, but they were very expensive, they were slow, and I never bought into one. But with digital now, there are so many great zooms, and with just 2 lenses, with the 24-70 and with the 70-200, you could cover so many focal lengths. So for me, I do a lot of event photography. If I'm traveling, I like to have a zoom. Now, I don't necessarily take this zoom with me when I'm traveling. I also have a 24-200. It's slower than this. It starts at f4 and goes to 6.3, but it's a great lens for travel. It's much lighter than this, and it covers that great range from 24 to 200. Now, some people will say that the prime lens is sharper, and in many cases they are, but it's not a huge difference, and it's not something I think you're going to notice unless you go really big or unless you are a real pixel peeper. But again, the nice thing with the prime is they're usually much faster. In this case, this example here that I have, it's 2 stops. Also, they're smaller and lighter. They take smaller filters. This lens takes a 62 millimeter filter, while this zoom takes an 82 millimeter filter. You can see the size. I'm going to set this zoom for 50 millimeters. Okay, so this is set to 50. This one is a 50 prime, so you can see it's bigger, it's wider around, and it's heavier. Also, prime lenses have less elements. Therefore, you're less likely to have an issue with flare if you're shooting with the sun in the image or just outside of the image. Also, the shade for a prime lens is specifically made for that focal length, so you're getting maximum shading. You could see the shade on this lens is deeper, not much, but it's deeper than this shade for the 24-70, because this 24-70 shade must be able to accommodate the 24 millimeter focal length. So it can't be too long or else you will get vignetting. And it also needs to accommodate us when you reach 70. So at 70 you could really use, or 50, you could use a much longer shade. Where again, the prime lens, the shade is just for its focal length. So you're getting more shading. Also, we have to consider the cost. The zoom lens is much more expensive. This lens was over $2,000. This lens was $500. However, you're getting so many more focal lengths in one. So it's really a matter of your personal preference, number one, what you shoot, in what conditions you shoot. Again, low light, you may want a prime lens because you could open up to full aperture and you're letting in a lot more light than you are with the zoom. Also, if you're a photographer that likes to throw that background out of focus, well, a high-speed lens is going to do that better than the zoom because of the faster aperture. I have a 135 1.8 that does a beautiful job throwing the background out of focus. With my 70-200, my maximum aperture is 2.8, so I'm not getting as much background blur with the zoom. Also, with a prime lens, you may need to carry several focal lengths with you. So you may have a 24, a 35, a 50, and something longer in your bag, where with zoom lenses, you could cover the entire range from 24 to 200 with just two lenses, and those are 2.8 lenses. If you didn't need something that fast, go with a slower lens like my 24 to 200, which is f4 to 6.3, and one lens will cover that entire range. So like I said, there's pros and cons of each. I shoot a lot of events. I much prefer the zoom. Majority of my event photographs are taken with this 24 to 70. It's a very versatile lens and very sharp. I honestly do not see a difference at 50 millimeters between these two lenses. And this is the least expensive of Nikon's 50 millimeter lenses. It's the 51.4, it's fairly new. The 51.8 is a little bit more expensive and is even sharper. But this is plenty sharp for me. So like I said, it really depends on what you're shooting. For me, shooting events, the 24 to 70 works out beautifully. I may be shooting a group of people in a small room, so I need to be fairly wide. And then right after that, I may have to run over and get a shot of a speaker at a podium or a presentation of an award. So the versatility of the zoom really works out well for me. And that's what I prefer. But still, I always carry a high-speed prime with me just in case. Just in case I need to shoot without flash or in a darkened area, it's nice to have the prime. So tell me what you think. Do you shoot primes? Do you shoot high-speed lenses? As in anything else, we all have our opinions. We all have our preferences. Nobody's right or wrong. It's whatever works for you is right. If you have any comments or questions on this video, please leave them in the comments below. I always try to respond to all questions and comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and ring that bell so you'll be alerted anytime I publish a new video. And I usually publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon.